Not live yet.
Right.
What?
We're live. There we are. We're live.
Again.
Unbelievable.
Wednesday night.
It's so predictable. And look, I wore a shirt with a hole. Isn't that impressive?
Is that from welding? Is that welding on the Gambler?
I don't know what the hell that's from. It's like, I don't know how I have any clothes that don't have holes in them, to tell you the truth.
Well, it's a Gambler 501 now. Sure.
Right, Gambler 501. I made a lot of strides with that car.
Yeah, well, I saw you got the floor in it.
Yeah, I picked up a roll bar for it today, too.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, my friend Jim had one sitting there, so I was going to put a roll bar in it now.
Oh, sweet.
So we can crash it through the woods and maybe survive, with just minor head injuries because we won't be wearing helmets.
Well, is that thing going to be four-wheel drive or is it two-wheel drive?
Two-wheel drive, man. I don't like four-wheel drive.
Too many pieces
Too
to go wrong.
Too many things, too much stuff. I have a winch. I'll get a winch. That's all the four-wheel drive I need.
Yeah. Well, if you make it light enough, you don't have to worry about it.
Actually, the winch is better than four-wheel drive.
But that's like five-wheel drive.
There you go. All right, so what do we got here? We have George Bonney, what's going on? Mutant Rife. John Trudell, what's happening? He calls me a cult leader. Isn't that cool? I love that.
You have your own cult.
Yeah.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
John Woodworth is blaming squirrels. Excellent. Jason's Garage, what's going on? R Stage 3. Gavin Dowell, Stang Lincoln, Slow Cars Garage. Slow Cars Garage, I like that. Do you guys recommend use break-in oils in today's engines? I got to think about that. Dickie Farley, Harry, Australia. That's like a superhero name. Harry, Australia.
I lived there for 3 years.
I know you did. Nathan Eden, Paul Cavazola, Anthony Perna, Terrence Seymour, Jason Fitch, Replica, Joe K. Wow. Oliver of Bogie Master, Media Alti. What's happening? Terry Douglas, Michael Galapo. I'm just going to keep reading names. You know what? That's what we're going to do. For the next 2 hours, I'm just going to sit here and read names. Quentin Christensen, Eric Fubar the Axe.
Yeah, he's already put the AHRA merch up too.
Yes. Fubar is the driver of all commerce.
He is.
On our lives.
Man, I owe him quite a bit of money.
Yeah, everybody owes Fubar. The world owes Fubar. Mark Sanders, Will Sweetster, Harry Kaiser. What's happening?
Harry ordered some decals from me in Australia, and I sent it to him, and I worked out a deal for international shipping.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, you ship all over. You would ship anywhere on the anywhere.
Even off the Earth.
Off the Earth, doesn't matter. You'll send that stuff.
Yeah. If you're the Mars rover and you're watching this, I will send you some decals.
Ultra Kathy is probably lurking. That's right, Jason. She is always lurking. Ultra Kathy is everywhere all the time.
Well, she keeps us in check, right?
She's a puppet master. Okay, she's a puppet master. Right, exactly. It snowed in West Virginia today.
It was snowing this morning when I left here.
Here in Tennessee?
Yeah.
I was up at like 5 o'clock. It wasn't snowing.
It was 4:30 and it was like spitting sleet.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
stop, Eric.
No EGR questions. Oh, there she is. The puppet master, Ultra Kathy.
See, she snuck in there.
Yep. That's right, Jason. She's actually at the shop finishing cars. She's
doing the Gambler, right?
She's doing a Gambler car. I go home and make cookies, and she does all of that stuff. But then, to make it look like I do the work,
You build a motor in the bathroom. Yeah.
Oh, let's see.
Did you ever finish the engine in the bathroom deal?
We were just talking about that. I haven't been to the house. It's like the engine stand and the bearings and all of that stuff is sitting in the kitchen. The block is sitting in front of my fireplace on a hand dolly. It hasn't moved in 3 weeks since I picked it up from the machine shop.
Why don't we just bring a kitchen to your garage?
Oh, please, I don't know. We got to figure out something like that. I don't know. Hunter Klein, Tony, would you be interested in a 68 D100 short box with a strong 318? I have too many vehicles kicking around, brother, man. I'm not. But maybe somebody else is. Put the information you want out there and see if you can move it.
Let's see. Well, like a couple of weeks ago, I offered you that 215 for your Project Miata, right?
And that 215 is perfect for Miata. I mean, we literally bolt in, like, no modifications to the firewall or anything like that.
It tweaked me for a minute because I'm like, man, I know they made a sports car with that thing in there.
Right.
And I went back and looked, and it's called the Apollo 5000 GT. And it was made in the USA, and it was a sports car like the Cobra.
Okay.
But it was built by some guys in California, right? And they made, well, they only turned out a few of them, actually. But it had the 215 for like 62 and 63.
Okay.
And in 64, it got the 300. Well, the 300 made like 100 more horsepower, and it ran 140 miles an hour. But it was a hand-formed aluminum body.
Stout
I mean,
1964.
Well, yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, because think about it. The Cobra was, at that time, was getting what? The small block? So it was probably on par with the Cobra until they went gonzo.
Yeah, no, it would definitely be a perfect Miata engine, just not a perfect Miata engine for me.
Well, maybe I have to go buy a Miata now to put it in there.
Well, think of it this way, right? If somebody says, hey, what kind of engine should I put in a Miata? The very last engine I would ever recommend anybody ever putting in a Miata would be a Slant 6.
For sure.
I'm just doing it because that's what I want, right?
But when you open the hood, it's going to be like, wow.
On the flip side, if somebody says, hey, what would be the perfect engine to put in the Miata? I'd say a Buick 215.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ideal. Let's go back here. Project Time Garage. Project Time Garage is a friend of ours. Go to Project Time Garage and go subscribe to Project Time Garage. He's got great stuff.
He was at the meet and greet.
He was at the meet and greet. Yes, exactly. He brought the grills.
The two extra
grills. Yeah.
Yeah. Once I got all three of them burning, I couldn't keep up with them. I literally couldn't. I had to stop.
Michael Logston, what RPM do you spin your 440s at? I feel like I'm getting valve float at 5,200. I'm running 906 heads with dual springs. I will almost guarantee if it's starting to break up at like 5,200, it's in your electronic control unit. You're probably using a Chrysler electronic ignition system, and you probably got the orange box, right? Or maybe one of the aftermarket, like the chrome one or anything like that. I'll almost guarantee it's that, because when those things they go bad, it gives you all exactly the same symptoms as valve float, and they usually start going at about 5,000, 5,200 RPM. So check that before you check your valve float with the dual springs, the high performance springs. You wouldn't see valve floats over 6,500 RPM.
I like the next question. Mark Shaw is saying, how do I go about a low buck 4-speed swap on my 383B body?
Oh,
Wouldn't it the easiest way to be one of those simple 383 overdrives? Or the
833 overdrive.
Yeah.
But does he want overdrive? I mean, either way, it doesn't make any difference, because it's 833 overdrive is going to bolt in the same way. But the 833 overdrive would be the cheapest way, because you can still get those. You find them in junkyards. You find them in Chevy trucks.
Right.
The Chrysler transmissions.
And they have the dual patterns if they're on the Chevy trucks, right?
Yeah. So that would be the cheapest way to do it. Your expense is going to be in pedals. And I mean, you can be creative and make your own clutch pedal. I did that with a couple of our cars. Bell housing, all those incidental things is what's going to nickel and dime you. Ari, what's going on, Ari? And Fubar put a link to our merch, our hats, T-shirts, stickers, mugs. Oh God, we have so many good things. But you have even better things.
Oh well, somewhat. I mean, matter of fact, I just got a delivery of new membership shirts 2 days ago.
Oh.
So I got some red membership shirts with the HRA logo on.
So if somebody becomes a member, they get a red shirt.
They get a red shirt, yeah.
Aren't those the ones that got killed on Star Trek?
Yeah, that's why we made them.
Okay.
It's all the lesser of people,
So
the nobodies.
So if anybody buys an AHRA online membership,
yep,
and they get a member shirt, they're sure to be killed shortly after.
When they beam down.
Okay.
Right after they beam down.
All right, let's see. 0. It is 0. We're level now. See, 0. See, all of our mods have a thing. You see what I'm saying?
All right.
Like John Wilburn injects his intelligence. You know what I'm saying? Right? Fubar, the axe, drops the hammer and shares the merch and everything like that. Ari is just like the mod. You know what I mean? It's just like, right, okay.
Yep, let's get rid of that guy. But
then 0 brings the level. You know what I'm saying? 0, right? Okay, 0 is the karma mod. You know what I mean?
Karma mod. All the good things happen when it's on your hand.
Yeah, Zen 0, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, so I went to Atlanta and I met up with Eric Albino.
Eric Albino.
That's the guy I was telling you about. That he's actually from your neck of the woods, New York area.
Okay.
He lives down in Florida, but he had picked up that switch pitch for me when we were talking to him a couple weeks ago, and we decided to meet up at Summit down in McDonough.
Okay.
Right. And we went to this burger place today. It was a 2018 World Burger Champion.
Nice.
It was badass.
What was the name of it?
Kirby G's, I think.
Okay.
Kirby G's.
I didn't know there was a burger competition.
Yeah.
That you would have a champion.
And this thing had shredded bacon on it, like pulled pork, but it was pulled bacon.
Ooh, I don't like pulled pork, but I do love pulled bacon. Would technically be pulled pork.
Yeah, but it's
not. Yeah.
Good part of the hog to choose.
The bacon is meat candy.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know what it is, really? It's pig tits.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know.
Delicious.
But when you think of it that way, it's like, you know what I'm saying?
I'm down for pig tits anytime. I put it on everything. Makes anything taste better.
Let's see. Rocky Myers. You said a torsion bar front end is almost drivable without a shock absorber. I have actually experienced this, and you were right. My question is, why does this work? Because when the spring is twisted instead of wound, there's no chance for rebound. You know what I mean? Like a coil spring is going to do this. The torsion bar, once it's unloaded, goes like this. You know, it's like you get one motion out of it, as opposed to like many motions out of a coil spring. I can tell you right now, I have driven cars in every situation with like no front shocks to be, like to speak of at all. You'd never know it. You would never know it. You can't do that with a coil spring car though.
Oh. So Dorian Ness is saying, question, I'm taking my 77 El Camino cross country. What tips or maintenance should I do before I leave? Oh, belts. I do belts for sure. And
you gotta want to look them over.
Yeah, and hoses. And then I throw an extra HEI module because that's a 77 El Camino.
Yeah.
I throw an extra HEI module in the glove box and a fuel filter. That'd be about it.
That sounds about fair.
And check the tires.
You should always have like a breakdown box.
I always have have a little one in every vehicle going.
Yeah, breakdown box, and you have like a few yards of wire.
baling wire.
General wire. Electrical wire. You can use it for any purpose. A cheap small electric fuel pump, like a click clack thing, or I keep a
like the Mr. Gasket $20 cheapy deal.
Right, exactly. And some line, some clamps and whatnot. Just to take care of like the unforeseen.
And I do adjustable wrench, and I have a multi-tool, like a Gerber multi-tool in there.
I love adjustable wrenches. Somebody ragged on me for using an adjustable wrench.
Really?
Yeah. I did a video, I forgot what it was, right? I don't remember which one it was. And they were like, look at this guy using an adjustable wrench. Not for nothing. But okay, like, so if you ever work with fuel cars, okay, you never go to the starting line without an adjustable wrench in your back pocket. In one pocket, in one back pocket, you've got an adjustable wrench, okay, and in the other back pocket, you've got a rag, and you've got strips of tape wrapped around the rag, because sometimes you have to make a diaper after the car will do a burnout. It's backing up. You'll see a fuel line leaking, or because always something's going to leak, and you grab the rag with the duct tape on it, and that's your Band-Aid, and you get lines that loosen up as the car, all of the vibrations. Car does a burnout, you come back and it's dripping fuel from a fitting. They'll loosen up. You grab your adjustable wrench, and you're done. So it's like, yeah, people rag on adjustable wrenches, but like for certain levels of certain types of racing, it's crucial,
Right. Well, I mean, I have my adjustable wrench because you take one wrench, and if you do it properly, there's no reason that they're adjustable, and especially if you get a good adjustable wrench, not some bottom shelf piece right from Harbor Freight. But
let's see. James Wilhite is always late, he says. Let's see. Steve Bico, hello, dudes. Ari, I like them for backing a wrench in a pinch. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I used it for in that video, because you're backing up a wrench, so you don't turn the fitting. So you use the adjustable wrench on the fitting, which isn't going to get as much torque as the nut, and use a proper wrench on the nut.
All right, so this is interesting question here.
Okay.
Anthony Perna saying, Tony in Dallas, I've never driven my 55 Buick over 5 miles an hour because the master cylinder isn't right. What does it say? It's a tread vac?
I don't know what tread vac is.
I'm assuming it's an old style brake system. And it says with 4-wheel drums, if I swap to manual brakes, will I miss the extra braking?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
And it probably won't. You probably won't brake ever again.
Yeah. Boosters, power boosters is so hit and miss. It's one of those things where if you've got the option of removing it, you know what I mean? Just do it. Because you can't get good rebuilds anymore. You can't, you know what I mean?
Oh, like, speaking of that, there's a place I found on Facebook. It's a place called Power Brake Booster Exchange in Washington.
Really?
Yeah, and I sent them one for 72 Skylark. It came back looking brand new, right? And it worked great.
Okay.
But they're the only place I know of.
Oh, Anthony Perna says it's treadle vac. It's early power brakes. Yeah, I would do away with it. Me personally, I would do away with it. And you're not going to give up anything.
Yeah, you probably won't even notice it.
Mostly old parts. You know who that is? That's my buddy Ron Ward. He's got that. He's got that. Remember that road runner, the Ratty 60?
Oh, the Ratty one, yeah.
Yeah, he started a Mopar channel called Mostly Old Parts. So if you guys, all my Mopar people on here, right? Okay, so here's the thing, right? There's a lot of Mopar stuff that I don't do right on the channel because it's too Mopar. All right, so meaning
is there such thing as too?
Yeah. I'll tell you why. Right? I could do, and I'm going to do. Actually, I'm doing a Slate 6 video tomorrow.
Okay.
Now I could do a Slate 6 video, and it's going to be about component, his part of the history of the motor, or modifying the motor, or something like that, right? Okay, it does make a difference. And people of all automotive interests will be interested in it because it's generic. It's about the Slant 6. Okay. Right. But if I did a video, right, on replacing the nylon drive gear for the distributor with a steel one, nobody but somebody who has
because that's Mopar only.
Because that's Mopar only, right?
Right.
So I don't do. There's 10,000 videos that I don't do.
So you need a broad general topic generally.
Right. So I do broad general topics based off of Mopars, but it's kind of transferable to any other engine.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah. No, I saw the points one the other day. It was good.
Ron Ward, on the other hand, picks up where I leave off.
He goes deep into Mopar.
Ron Ward goes deep into Mopar. Okay, like the little minutia things that, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. You're just dabbing your toe in the Mopar pool. He's all the way up to the neck, right?
I use Mopars to illustrate, and he is nothing but Mopars.
Right. Okay.
So if you guys, if you're a hands-on classic era Mopar guy, and you're looking for those little tech tips and tidbits and everything, Mostly Old Parts is the channel, right? Mostly Old Parts. Which, you know what that's from?
Mopar, isn't that?
Mopar. Mostly Old Parts and Rust. The one I always like is my old pig ain't running. So yeah, I go over there and sub to Mostly Old Parts. And thank you, Ron, for doing the Mopar community a service, because there is no other channel like that. There's nobody out there doing exactly what you're doing. Okay. Goblin of Gaxon. Oh, wow. Look at this guy's name. He must have spent a week coming up with that. Goblin of Gaxinor. That gear is nylon for a reason. What's the reason? Because, I don't know. I'm doing this my whole life, and I don't know why it's nylon.
They don't wear.
They come apart.
I don't know. I see the Buick timing chains were like that too. All the timing gears were.
Well, it's a nylon cover.
No, it's a nylon gear.
It's a fiber gear.
Oh, it might be fiber. I'm assuming that's for quiet. So it's quiet.
Yeah, but they used a nylon gear on the earliest motors. Used a steel one, and then like in '62, I think '63, they went to this nylon gear, and it's lasted the whole run.
The nylon.
But he says that there's a reason for it. I want to know what the reason is.
When somebody says reason is NVH, I don't know what that is.
Noise, vibration, and harshness.
I can't see that one gear.
Yeah, why would that be the only? The only nylon distributor drive in the whole world of Mopars that I'm aware of is on the Slant 6. So why on the Slant 6 and not on the other ones?
Huh. Can you buy a steel one?
Yeah.
You can still buy them?
Well, you got to go hunting for them.
They're hard to come.
Like anything else. The crazies.
They're getting hard to find. Yeah, they're getting hard to
They
find.
used to be available aftermarket, but I don't believe they're available anymore.
Huh.
Okay, let's see. Ari says NVA stopped my grandpa from building his cars too. Let's see.
Spanky Ham is saying GM used nylon on their timing gears for a while because of noise. I just can't believe that thing would make that much noise.
Yeah, Joe K. How comparable are the torsion bar setups on the Mopar versus the 88 and GM trucks? All torsion bar setups are essentially the same. They all work off the same principle. The trucks have the adjustment point at the torsion bar cross member instead of at the control arm. But yeah, I mean, lots of manufacturers have used torsion bars in countless applications. Just Chrysler built a whole thing around the torsion bar suspension.
Anthony's saying Ford used a composite gear in the 306.
Yeah, it's like a fiber.
It'd be like a phenolic, maybe.
No. It's not solid. It's like a. I want to say it's like fiberglass, but it's not fiberglass. It's like oh god, it's like
fiber impregnated
rope, like. You'd have to cut one apart to know what I'm talking about. You have to have like the pieces of one.
Huh.
And those things, they don't come off. I remember that, like when I used to work on those things.
The Fords are all pressed on anyway, right?
They're pressed on it. They don't come off. They don't come off from one piece.
Huh. There you go. Maybe that's what it's called. Nylotron.
No, it's not Nylotron. No, Nylotron is soft. And it's not
Alex Blair said Bakelite and break in 27 seconds.
Let's see. He always Goblin of Smith, Mr. Smith. I always thought the nylon gear was so it wears brakes instead of your cam. Well, neither should wear or break. I mean, it's
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's like I'm assuming the cam drives the oil pump like normal, right? Or I mean the distributor gear. Well, I don't know. It's a Mopar, so they're weird, aren't they? Weird.
No,
they have their own gear, drive assembly or something. And
not on the Slant 6. No,
it's like a regular GM or something.
The gear is cut into the camshaft, and it's got a mating drive gear on the
distributor.
On the distributor. But that's made out of nylon.
What I've seen like the Buick stuff is that where that cam, if you have too much oil pressure, that cam gear gets chewed off, right? And you got to replace the cam. There's no way around it because the gear on the cam is gone. So if it was that same kind of situation, say they were having cam gear failures.
That's possible. They might have had a run of something, like an issue like that early on.
Right.
And said, all right, let's just put a nylon gear on there. I don't know. There's so many little, engineering changes that are made for unspoken or unspecified reasons.
Ben Treese is asking, hey, what's your opinion of the Chrysler Pentastar 3.6 liter V6?
I have no opinion of it. John Bossoms, is it worth the risk reusing old head bolts on an engine rebuild?
Hell yeah, as long as they're not torque to yield pieces.
Right.
That's a cheap way to get around it.
Yeah, if you're dealing with an older engine that just has regular head, regular bolts, not torque to yield, right? Then yeah, reuse them all you want. Check them for stretch. If you're worried, if you're concerned, just check them for stretch. Measure the average. You know what I mean? And if you see any, actually, the best way to you got a bolt? Just any type of long shank bolt.
Yeah. You want a head bolt?
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yeah. So here.
Show the camera.
Yeah, see, I'm doing this because, so what you do is, if you're concerned whether or not a bolt is worth reusing, okay, you want to measure along the shank over here. And if you see any thins, like, okay, if you're measuring along here, you get a dip. Let's say, you know, she squeezes down about 1/1000th of an inch or so anywhere in there. Well, then for sure, right, the bolt is stretched. Don't use it. Okay. But if you measure along the length of the shank over here, and it's even all the way across, you're fine. You can't always. I mean, you can measure them like this, right? But you're going to have production differences in length that would be normally like 2-3 thousandths of an inch. Like if let's say you pull 16 head bolts out of an engine, you know, they're all like the same length. It wouldn't be unusual to have one that was 3 thousandths longer or shorter than the others, because it's just, you know, but this measurement right here is always accurate. So if you got a thin spot anywhere along the shank, you throw it away.
You know, matter of fact, out of all the head bolts I've just that I've reused, that 300 that I'm putting together was the first time I ever had when I dropped all the bolts in. I was checking piston valve clearance. I was bolting the head on, right? And I get to like the third bolt, and I torque it down. I'm torquing it. My spec's like 60,
right?
And I get to like 55, and it won't get any tighter. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? I took it out, and the threads were like 1/4 of an inch longer, right? Because it kept stretching them. But I was so happy that it didn't break off, because it would have been like, oh God, you know, how do I get that out?
James Wilhite. James, so I knew somebody was going to ask me that question, okay? And I've been dreading that question so far. You know why? Because I don't know, and I'm going to find out probably the hard way, okay? Because, James, that's what I did on the Plan Z slant, okay? I didn't have retainers that would work with the locks, right? So it was like, I had a choice, okay? Use the Slant 6 retainers with the 340 valve springs, right? Or have custom stuff made. And that's just not going to happen, right? So I used the Slant 6 retainers with the 340 springs. They're sloppy, okay? I mean, it's the movement, you know, like it's sloppy. Don't do it until unless you're putting your engine together tomorrow, don't try it until I've run it, right? Which will be soon, very soon. We were gonna go like this last Saturday, the Saturday before, run the car at the track, but we got rained out, and last Saturday was the meetup, so we couldn't go. But I don't know the answer to that. I put it together that way. If it sucks a valve, it sucks a valve. You know what I mean? And then I know we got to go spend the money for it.
Yep, buy custom retainers.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So this guy's asking, hey, Dallas, what are the weak points? Where'd that go? What are the weak points of the Buick 455, and how much can they take? The block is the weak point on those. And if anyone wasn't aware, the block there's a reason why it only weighs 25 pounds more than a small block Chevrolet, right? And that's because it doesn't have a lot of meat in the block. And unfortunately, the lack of material causes the block to flex. To be honest with you, the very first one I put together for my Suburban, when I went to put the crank in, I had taken the motor apart on the engine stand, and then I realized, well, I bought a cam bearing tool, and I had to take it off the engine stand to put the number 1 cam bearing in.
Okay.
Right? I put it back on the engine stand, and when I went to put the crank in, I couldn't get the crank to fall in, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Like, man, this block or this crank's hosed up, you know. No, it was because the block, when I bolted it back onto the engine stand fixture, it flexed it a different way. And then when I went to put the crank in, I had to go up to the front of the block and shimmy it, and then the crank went plunk and fell into place.
That's crazy.
But it was so sketchy.
That's crazy. I don't have that problem with Mopars at all. Right?
No. Well, the 350 Buick is completely different. It's a deep skirt block.
But you brought up, by you mentioning that, right?
Uh-huh.
You brought up a good point about the way a block, the back of a block, right, can affect the way it it sits. You know, it's trueness,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Because you had it bolted on the engine stand and it was off, right? Transmission bolts. A lot of guys will, like, I know I'll do it, like on my own cars. You get that one bolt that is just always a pain in the ass. So you say, you know what, I don't need this bolt,
Right.
And you leave it up. That's not a good idea. Because when that assembly is under load, those bolts are holding everything kind of even in the back.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you allow some flex between that's not a good thing. You experience that with that Buick.
Yeah. On that stand. So I just thought it was kind of interesting because I was talking about it today. Matter of fact.
Okay.
Do you know why they didn't put a 245 Hemi in the American car? Is that the Australian?
I'm actually going to go into some of that in a video that I'm doing tomorrow, and it has to do with marketing. It has to do with positioning and marketing. But I'm going to touch on that
I actually have a good idea behind that.
What's that?
That 245 Hemi wasn't all right. So the Australian muscle car era didn't occur at the same time as ours. It was like actually at the tail end of our muscle car era is when theirs got hot, right? That 245 Hemi, I believe, probably came out in the mid 70s for Australia.
I believe it was earlier than that.
Did it come out earlier? I need to know the years on it because if it came out later, that's an emissions thing. They weren't going to make a Hemi engine because of emissions. It didn't meet emissions. That's the only thing that killed the 426.
What year did who knows? What year did that 245 Hemi 6 come out? About 1968.
Oh.
1970, Gavin says. All right, so basically it's in that range. Chrysler, it was the same reason that they didn't put the 2-barrel on the Slant 6. See, this is a video I'm doing tomorrow, actually.
I don't want to take away from it.
Well, that's okay. It's no big deal. The Chrysler had a 2-barrel version of the Slant 6 going back to the middle 60s. Okay, they had a 4-barrel version, originally the Hyperpack.
Right.
Okay? And then they had a 2-barrel Marine version.
Oh, that's what I thought. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they had a 2-barrel export version for the South American markets and the Australian market, but never a 2-barrel version or a higher performance version of it
in the U.S.
Because they wanted to sell you the next step up to the V8.
426 Hemi.
Well, no,
or
the 318.
Yeah, right.
They wanted you to step up. They wanted you to, you see what I'm saying?
Right. So they didn't give you an option.
Right. They wanted the 318, which was their bread and butter motor, and they wanted people to choose that.
Well, what happened to this 4-barrel version? Where the hell is that sucker?
The Hyperpack?
Yeah, we should have had that.
That only lasted for the 1 year. It was 2 years, and it was dealer installed.
Oh, it is like a chunk option.
The Hyperpack was a dealer installed option. It was the intake manifold, two cast iron headers, camshaft, carburetor, a calibrated distributor.
Huh.
And it would the Hyperpack package, like you could put individual components on different engines, but the Hyperpack package would only work on 1961 and earlier cars because they had the direct drive starter.
Okay.
The back exhaust manifold, the back cast header, won't clear the newer starter. Yeah, it only clears the direct drive starter, and it's a different flywheel, so you can't just like simply retrofit the starter.
Right.
So, but anyway.
Huh. Man.
Let's see.
Well, SD is asking me, thanks for the reply, Dallas. What do you think about hard filling the block? Okay. The 455, I've always stayed away from them because they're so flexible. And if you look at the mains are why they're flexible. I wish I had I do have a block, but I couldn't wrestle it out here fast enough. The mains are weak. You can actually, when you bolt the mains on, you can see the bottom of the bolts coming out. It's almost kind of like the windowed mains of the Oldsmobile 403s.
Okay.
Right? It's real weak and flimsy. A girdle would be the best thing you can do.
Well, girl, you could fill it, but I would after you fill it, I would definitely line on it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Mopar Man's asking me, did I get the email on the project? Yes, I did. I did. I've just been busy. I didn't reply. It didn't look like you needed a reply.
Okay, Gavin Dowell says 69 was slant single or 2-barrel. Because I was only for the export market. You guys in Australia and South America got the 2-barrel there. And
whoa, 61 was
the
aluminum
245 single barrel, 2-barrel, triple Webers, and a 4-barrel.
They had an aluminum block for the. I thought that was a later motor.
No, the aluminum. No, well, the Inline Six was originally supposed to be aluminum.
Oh, okay.
Right. It was originally the whole thing was supposed to be aluminum, and they had problems with that whole deal, so they scrapped it, and went with the cast iron version. But they also put out 50,000 or so, give or take, aluminum motors from 1960 to 62.
Okay.
You know, it was a fairly rare option.
It's probably to compete with the 215.
Well, a lot of people, they were all experimenting with aluminum.
Yeah.
Back then.
Well, Porosity got a lot of them. But.
Well, post-war, there was like an aluminum glut. It's just like there was a titanium glut after the Cold War ended. You know, remember there was a time when titanium was just like the most exotic material on Earth. And then after the Cold War, it was like, yeah, titanium everything. You know, you want titanium fucking forks for your kitchen. You know, there's no problem. They're everywhere. So post-World War II, there was like an aluminum glut. So the automakers were like, let's make stuff out of aluminum, you know? But the casting techniques weren't like...
They weren't there.
Right. Let's see.
Yeah, Mopar, man, I don't have any parts for that 85 Buick. I think I actually replied to you saying that same thing.
Yeah, you're a Chevy guy. Cameron Cavington. Is it worth working with the peanut heads on my 454 and my K30, or should I just pony up for new heads? I'm looking for low-end torque.
No. Low-end torque, peanut ports would be good. The port velocity would be high.
Yeah. Doug Martin. Tony, what are the pros, cons of dual quads versus 4-barrel? The con is they're a little bit more difficult to set up. The pro is that it's as close to fuel injection as you're going to get with carburetors because you've got such a direct hit between the barrel and
each cylinder.
Right, exactly. Each cylinder has its own right. Well, I mean, not that each barrel is isolated to that cylinder.
It's not, but that's kind of how it would go, though.
Yeah.
But it would have the most even air distribution that there is.
Anthony Perna says, I always heard there was a ton of stainless left from World War II. Yep, that's true. That's true. Mostly old parts, Ron Ward. Mostly old parts. Go sub to that channel. Would you guys care to discuss the pros and cons of steel shim head gaskets versus composite head gaskets? I'm a steel shim head gasket guy.
Are you?
Oh, yeah.
I have some.
Yeah, but they won't fit my engines.
No, but I'll tell you, the only downside I found about the steel shim head gasket is they rust out. That's it. That's the only downside.
Oh, I've never had that problem.
No?
No.
Oh, I've had them rust out. Yeah.
I've never had that problem with Mopar ones. Yeah, but I have seen them on the GM cars. The Oldsmobiles were the worst.
Oh, because they had all those big water passages around all the cylinders?
Yeah. I was a kid. I was like 15, 16. I had just gotten thrown out of school, and I went to work for a place called Eddie's Amico, right? And my job was to do Oldsmobile head gaskets.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because there was a line of them. There was always, right?
So if you got an Oldsmobile head gasket guy, you know that line of engine's probably not that good.
I had it down to where I was able to do a head gasket on an Oldsmobile without ever pulling the intake manifold.
Really?
Yeah.
Just leave it bolted to the other head?
Leave it bolted to the other head. I used to be able to sneak the head out without taking the intake manifold.
Oh, wow.
I did like one other day.
My grandpa was like the cheapest guy when it came to those steel shim head gaskets because he figured out a way to paint them with aluminum paint, and then you could reuse the suckers.
Well, I copper coat them and I reused them.
Did you?
Yeah, I still do. I save them. If I tear a motor apart, an original motor, and it's got the stamp steel, I examine them. If they're all intact, if everything is cool, I clean them really nice and I put them on the side.
But aren't they like warped?
Yeah, they're fine. They're fine.
Okay.
And I copper coat them and reuse them. The car that I just drove up here and now,
Same thing.
Has used head gaskets in it. Because I don't like the composite gaskets. On a small engine like the 273,
Oh, it killed the compression.
killing the compression.
Right.
So I wanted to keep the compression up. There were no new ones available, so I says, "The hell with it." And I went to my stash of old head gaskets, cleaned up a pair, copper coated them, stuck them on there, and I've probably put 40 or 50,000 miles on it. No problem.
Sweet. I had a bunch of them. I threw a lot of them away.
Let's see. Chris Rock. I have a 66 273 with factory 2-barrel. Will a 318 4-barrel intake bolt on? 66? Yes. Bolt right on. The 64, 5, and 6 have the odd angle to the intake manifold bolts.
His is a 6.
64, 5, and 6. Oh, wait. Yeah, 66. No. Oh, God. Maybe I'm telling them the wrong thing. I don't know if they made now you see.
EGR. We're back to EGR.
Definitely 64 and 65 have the odd bolt angle. 66 may or may not. I'm not sure. You'd have to you got to do a little more research.
Sorry about that. I threw you off your game.
No, you didn't. No, you see, that's why we have you here, because you caught that. I was giving this guy erroneous information.
Yeah, well, I just hated to see him like get all the way in there, and it's like,
yeah,
crap.
Chris Rock, I was told if it takes a half-inch wrench for the bolts, and it will not work. Absolutely, that is correct. Yes, absolutely. If the later ones, you use a 9/16. The early engines have a 5/16 thread, which means that you take a half-inch wrench. The later bolts have the later heads have a 3/8, which means you would use a 9/16 wrench on it.
So Jeremiah Johnson, I caught this question. He's what's the best way to snake a rope rear main seal with the motor in the vehicle in a 350 Buick and a Jeep truck, right? And I already know kind of the answer. See, all right, so the rope seals, that's what they all came with.
Right.
But in about 1978, they took all of the asbestos out of them. And the rope seals leak like a sieve now because they don't have anything to protect them from the heat. And I don't even use them. I take them out, I buy a neoprene seal.
But he still has to get it out.
Right, he has to get the old rope seal out. But the easiest way to get the rope seal out is you get a machinist scribe and pull that rear cap off, snag that sucker, and pull on it with the machinist scribe.
I've never had luck doing that.
No?
You know what I do?
What's that?
I loosen all the mains.
All of them?
All the mains. Unbolt the converter, loosen all the mains, pull the crank, get the crank down a couple thousandths of an inch, and then you can get in there and hook it and get
snake
it moving. Yeah.
Huh. But when you're going to put it back in, you're going to have another leak if you're going to try to use a newer rope seal. The best way to do it is just put a neoprene.
Right. Dakota. It's Dakota. What's going on? How come Dakota is not in timeout? Did you notice that right away?
He says my dad's reused head gaskets.
All of us old timers have reused head gaskets. Okay. Fubar took care of Dakota. Awesome. You know, Dakota, there's a special room for you over at the shop. You know, it's actually named after you. So when you finally get to visit, you know.
Chris Greenway called me out on that. He said that I'm like the kid at school that would remind the teacher that they had to pass out homework, right? So thanks, Chris.
Mostly old parts. What are your thoughts on knurling valve guides versus machining and installing new guides? What are your thoughts on that?
It depends what it's for. If it's a daily and you're just wanting to get 50, 60,000 miles out of it, knurl the hell out of it. Yeah. If you're wanting something that's race or want to last for a long time, yeah, put some guides in it. But man, I'd easily go with knurling them.
Let's see.
Lobo GTX is asking, "Where's my beer?" Oh, I just got back from a road trip. I didn't feel like drinking any tonight. Plus, everybody was giving me such a hard time about drinking 3 of them.
Let's see. Dan's Garage. Tony, did you give any more thought to the reverse piston crank torque measuring idea? I haven't thought about anything except making videos this last couple of, when I'm in my shop mode and shop mechanic head, I will definitely.
Niles J. St. John is asking, what backing plates will be best for a 64 8 3/4 with axle nuts converting to standard later axles and brakes?
Backing plates. If you're going with a 10-inch, well, I say, okay, the backing plates from 1965, 10-inch backing plates, non-A body. So B body, E body, the normal 10-inch drums, the backing plates are all going to be the same from 1965 until 1970 something, way into the 70s. And even the 8 1/4 rears have the same backing plate. So that would give you the most. It could, because the distance from the flange to the distance from the axle flange to the housing flange stays consistent from those years on, from 65 on. So any set of 10-inch backing plates will work as long as they're not from an A body. A body has a different offset, but all of the other ones will work.
Even the C's are like that too?
10-inch, yeah.
Okay. And
and that would only be a disc brake car that would have the 10-inch in the back on a C. Most C's are 11s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Dang, I'm fine, guys. I'll have a beer.
Doug Narn is going to have 3 beers. 3 dozen. Oh,
3 dozen?
3 dozen. He's not messing around.
Why stop at 3 when you could go for 3 dozen?
Let's see. Cut your teeth. Just put on a brand new carb on my 292 straight Chevy. Still terrible coughing and stumbling on acceleration and idle. Some ideas. What year is it?
Did you just put it in right out of the box? Or is it the same symptoms?
Same symptoms.
I'm assuming if it's the same
still
symptoms, I start looking at
stumbling on acceleration.
It's a 292. When did they stop making a 292?
Oh, I'm not even sure. But forget.
Well, I'm kind of wondering because it could be an ignition issue.
Well, forget it. Forget that it's a 292. Just think of it as any engine, okay?
All right.
It coughs, it stumbles, off idle, it runs like shit, and he tries to put a carburetor on it to fix that, but it does exactly the same thing. So let's discount fuel system.
Right.
So it's going to be in the ignition.
Right.
Weak spark will give you that.
Right.
Right. A very weak spark will give you all of that coughing, stumbling, off idle. It'll do all this. What else?
Fuel lines being plugged will do that.
No, fuel line being plugged. At idle, it'll be fine, and just off throttle, it'll be fine. It'll run out of gas.
Yeah.
Right. It'll fall on its face. So it's not going to be in your fuel system. No.
Oh, vacuum leak could do that.
Vacuum leak, and the most notorious vacuum leak of all, the vacuum leak you can never find.
So
the EGR valve. Does it have an EGR valve on it? Check and see that the EGR valve isn't bad, because that'll give you a vacuum leak at idle and give you all of those symptoms.
I've had a brake booster that was bad and was the hardest fucking thing I had to find. I ended up just taking all the vacuum lines off and plugging everything. And then it ran great. And I'm like, okay, something is amiss. And I put a vacuum gauge on it and I hooked them all up one at a time to see what happened. And lo and behold, it was the booster. The booster was actually leaking.
That'll happen. You know what? I'll tell you, it's an intake valve A stuck intake valve will give you all of those things too. When it isn't closing completely.
Oh, right. Okay.
There's so many things it could be. Let's see. Check for a bent distributor.
It pays to have a smoke machine. I don't know. I've never been a big.
I've never used one. Let's see. Vacuum advanced diaphragm.
I've seen those go bad, but usually they don't give you those weird symptoms like that. Well, unless it's sucking air. But I've had them not work, and it just like is sluggish and doesn't have any beans.
I'm gonna say I would lean more towards an ignition issue. I would lean more towards a weak spark. You know, or oh god, there's so many things it could be.
Huh.
Jason Fitch, lifter stuck open is giving me those exact problems. Put some air in the cylinders and back off on the rock around. Yeah.
Oh, because it's holding the valve open.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Hold the valve open
That makes sense.
Just enough.
Yeah.
Just enough. Anthony Perna said he had a Caddy 500 that had a vacuum leak in the lifter valley. It was a nightmare to find.
Oh, on the
I've
bottom
come
of the
across
intake
stuff
manifold?
like that too, yeah.
Holy cow. What happened? Like cracked the intake manifold?
No, it's just the way the areas
like
are so thin, right, underneath, that unless everything lines up exactly right,
you get a leak. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I could see that. I've never run into the problem, but I know the Buicks, they got a steel. I don't know if you knew that. They got a steel bathtub gasket. You probably know that.
Yeah.
Well, is a Mopar the same way? They got a steel bathtub gasket?
The big blocks are.
Okay. You got to put silicone around them or they will get a vacuum leak and you'll have a hell of a time trying to find it.
On the Mopars, you don't.
Really?
Mopars, you seal the on the small blocks, you seal it on the water passages. I use the steel gasket.
You do
on the big block Mopar, no, you only use sealer at the very corners. So it's got the bathtub in it, and at either end, it's got strips, right, with 3 bolts.
Right.
And those you silicone the corners, okay? And you leave that alone. The actual.
What you got to lame the Buick is it actually comes with the RTV in the gasket set, and it tells you put this around the ports.
Well, so does the Chrysler.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I've never, ever used it.
Oh, I've done it on every single one. Stuck heat riser.
Let's see. Ben Treese, I think a lot of people would agree that Chevrolet had a better inline 6-cylinder engine into 250. I don't know what that means.
Maybe
Chevy had an
250.
amazing inline 6. All of their inline 6s were good. There was never.
You know what? How good that motor was? That came in actually every automobile line from General Motors except Cadillac.
Right. That's right.
You could get that 250 in anything. Yeah, weak spark. He's saying it's condenser.
Yeah. If it's a points ignition, definitely could be a condenser. Oh, yeah. See, I didn't even cross my mind. I'm supposed to be the points and Mr. Points, right? Yeah, it could definitely be a condenser. I shouldn't be doing this. Doozer's shop says I had a 75 F100 with a 360 FE. I blew the motor because of an intake vacuum leak in the lifter galley. It detonated to death because it was way too lean. Yeah, I could see that happening. Let's see.
You know what? The GM Inline 6, the one I always wanted to do is that 4.2 Vortec, the ones that came in like the Trailblazers and stuff. Guys talked about how awesome it was compared to it's like the American version of the Barra, right? And it's that variable valve timing Inline 6. I like inline motors because they're different, because they're odd, right? And that to me would be like the king of inline motors. It's got an LS base style head on it.
Did you see the vent video we did today?
Yeah,
with the 54.
Oh yeah, was Stove Bolt 6?
Yeah, that thing was just magic. I love inlines.
Well, I like the way they sound. It sounds like a, I don't know, like a big tractor engine.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. Ari says he drives a 235.
Those were good motors too. I mean, aren't those the ones that had the weird bearings in them? They weren't like Babbitt bearings. They were like a leather bearing or something weird.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I was just told about them. I've never had one apart. But I just thought it was interesting. So it's something that stuck with me.
Let's see. Google sucks. Tony, can you reuse a Felpro composite gasket? I didn't run the motor yet, just torqued them down. Yeah, if you didn't run the motor and it hasn't been doing like cycles and stuff like that, you can reuse it just because once you've fired it up, if you take that,
seal.
Yeah. So if it hasn't been through a heating and cooling cycle, yeah, you can reuse it. Don't worry about it.
I used to have a cheap rule of thumb about those things. So when you torque them, when you initially torque them, if you like, you leave yourself a little bit of room for error, right? So you know how they got the fire ring in there, right?
Yep.
And that fire ring compresses when you torque them.
Right.
But if you torque it to like the low end of the spec, and then you got to take it back off and you put it back on, torque it to the high end of the spec, and that way you can reuse the thing and guarantee it'll seal. I've had on the start stand a couple of engines where I put them together, and as soon as I put water in it, it would start seeping, and I'm like, ooh, that's not good, right? Well, let me fire it up and get it broke in and see what happens with the heat when the heat gets to it, right? Seal right up, stop seeping.
I've had that happen too. It'll leak between the block and the head. You'll
right,
see some seepage
like
there, and you're like,
worried.
oh no, what did I forget? What did I do wrong?
I know. I was like, man, I know everything's right.
Right.
I'm going to just run it through some heat and see what happens. But yeah, that's a heartbreaking feeling, I guess, when you see something like that. Because I mean, the head is not the most top thing. It's not like taking the valve cover off.
Let's see. Bill King, really? You are saying to reuse a head gasket? Oh my God.
No,
oh my God.
Not 100,000 mile piece.
He never started the motor. He bolted the head down, right? He never started the motor. It hasn't been through any cycles. It's fine. He can reuse it.
An MLS gasket is reusable infinitely. Infinitely.
You can always tell somebody who's only like ever built an engine or two, you know what I mean? Or read about it, like,
not willing to take a chance or. Let's see. This guy says, roll up the cannolis. Ignition question. You convinced me I wasted money on a ready-to-run MSD. I can't see what that says. L. But don't multi-spark ignitions produce more power than points? Yes.
Points don't make the power. The coil makes the power. Right?
Yeah, the points actually just collapse the field and cause the coil to work, right?
Right. And an MSD is only multi-spark until 3,000 RPM, and then it becomes a regular spark. Was it 3,500 RPM? Whatever it happens to be. And the reason for that, the reason for the multi-spark at low RPM is because if you've got a sloppy, fat tune-up at idle where there's no vacuum and the motor is just sitting there going, well, if you've got one of those setups, that multi-spark helps keep the plugs from killing themselves before the engine actually gets into its power range. Then MSD becomes a single spark over 3,000 RPM. Like in the happy zone, it's the same as any other ignition system. And as far as the voltage go, you're looking at about approximately 40,000 volts, which is approximately the same as a stock HEI, which is approximately the same as a point system using like an Axel supercoil or any of those other coils. So no, there is no performance advantage. It's unless you're way off, right? If you're way off, then an MSD is a good Band-Aid, but that's all it is. It's a Band-Aid.
Well, the It's a capacitive discharge ignition. It has the ability to make more spark than a points system, guaranteed.
Why do you say that?
Because it has that capacitor in there, charges in between. That's what that multi-spark deal does.
But you can trigger an MSD with points.
You can.
Right. So it's like you can have a capacitive discharge ignition with points. One thing has nothing to do with the other.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's just an add-on piece.
Let's see. Ben Treese, I was reading somewhere, Uncle Tony, that Chrysler back in the late 70s had a diesel engine in development for the Chrysler R-Body platform, the Dodge St. Regis, and the Chrysler New Yorker. They absolutely did. And we did one of the more recent Slant 6 videos we did, a Chrysler engineer actually got in there in the comments, and he wrote a whole thing about the Slant 6 diesel program that they had going.
It was a Slant 6 diesel?
Slant 6 diesel. And how the engine ran perfectly. It adapted to being a diesel perfectly, but Chrysler scrapped the program because of some kind of an emissions thing that they had a problem getting through. But no, the Slant 6 diesel was a real thing, and it ran. There was no problem with it.
You might not have wanted that because as the Oldsmobile guys, because, I mean, the Oldsmobile diesel went in cars. But
that wasn't the happiest. That wasn't the happiest thing.
No. And I don't know what really killed those. I remember seeing a bunch of them with head gaskets that were out. But that diesel was all naturally aspirated diesel, had like 20-to-1 compression. I know that more of those blocks ended up like out of the car and going drag racing than anything else.
Let's see. Davis Unified Ignition.
Roland.
MSD my spark disappeared.
Let's see. Oh, yeah. When those things go bad, they go bad. Like, they're done. There is no like, hey, I think it might not work anymore. I'm not sure. It's missing. No, it's like you're stuck in the parking lot, not running.
Let's see. Melissa agrees. I've used head gaskets a lot, keeping my old 73 Chevy work truck working. Anybody who's been around the block with engines for any amount of time knows the situation. We've all been there countless times. You put an engine together, you got it all set to go, you're going to run those heads and so on and so forth, and then like all of a sudden a buddy calls up and says, hey, remember those so-and-so heads that I had? You can have them for $100. And you're like, I'm all over it, right? So you go and you pull your head and you're like, I got to go buy new head gaskets and shit. No, I want to run this car right now. Wham, wham, you put it together, you drop it in the car, and you're like, let's see what happens. And 3 years later, the thing is just still running just fine. So it's like we've all been through it. And people who say you can't do certain things, I don't want to say they're all just keyboard warriors, but most of them are keyboard warriors that don't have the real world experience of what will work, what you can get away with, and what you can't get away with.
And you have to actually look at the stuff. There's some stuff that I would never put back in the engine. There's some things that like I would reuse the head gasket out, but I won't reuse the valves out of it, right? Like it just depends how well it was taken care of. And
see, I reuse valves. I don't have a problem.
No, I reuse valves. What I'm getting is like sometimes you'll take it apart and the head gasket will look okay, and you can reuse that steel shim head gasket. Right?
Oh, steel shim head gaskets.
But if the valve's all gacked up, I might not reuse the valve out of the same motor, right?
But he was talking about a composite gasket,
right?
That he put on the engine,
right? No, I got it,
right, and it never ran. No, but they don't. Not everybody who's joining this conversation, is. So he had a brand new set of head gaskets, put them on the engine, put the heads on it, and then took it apart for whatever reason. And he wants to know if he can reuse those head gaskets. And yes, they haven't been through any cycles. So torquing them back down in the same place is not going to change anything at all. If those head gaskets, the composite head gaskets, have been run, then there's almost no way you can actually take them off and reuse them because they stick, right? Part of the thing with the composite head gaskets is as they heat, there's like a glue that seeps out of them and joins it to the surface of the deck and the block. So when you go to take that head off after it's been through
it peels it apart.
It peels it apart and you can't reuse it.
Yeah.
But a brand new head gasket, no, you won't have any problem with that at all.
Look at this guy. Mitten made muscle. copper spray. I use that shit on everything.
Yeah. And as far as the steel shim head gaskets go, I've reused them. I've been reusing steel shim head gaskets literally since the 70s. We're not talking about, I did it last week. No, I've been reusing steel shim head gaskets literally since the 1970s. What decade is this now? This is, oh, look at that. Steel shim head gasket.
Yeah. So you notice they're not in the trash, right? These are original 1964 Buick 300 steel shim head gaskets, right? And I mean, they're bowed, they've been used, right? But I kept them because you can copper coat them and reuse them.
Copper coat them and reuse them. They're fine.
Right? Now, here's the later model one. It's an MLS gasket, right?
Yeah.
And an MLS style gasket, you can tell because they've been one, maybe this one's a little different, but most of the time you can tell because it's in multi-layers, MLS, multi-layered steel, right? And they'll have a rivet normally hold them together.
Those you can't reuse.
Yes, you can.
The MLS ones?
Yeah, MLS you can reuse.
Are you sure about that?
I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why they cost 2 times or 3 times.
See, these things for the Chryslers aren't available anymore. You can't get them anymore.
You can't get them for the Buick anymore either. I source that stuff like on eBay, like OEM guys.
So you copper coat them and you send them. Need Metal says, how much money are you saving reusing head gaskets? It's not a matter of saving money. It's a matter of, like, for instance, the car that I'm driving right now, the car that I drove here, I needed head gaskets for it. I couldn't get the steel shim head gaskets for it, so I reused steel shim head gaskets. I've put at least 50 or 60,000 miles on it since then, and not a lick of trouble. So,
more or less, it makes it easier because it's a pain in the ass to have to go to the parts store. You order something, or like you said, your 273 motor, your steel shim head gasket that most of you guys don't understand are probably like 20 thousandths thick. When you put a composite gasket on there, a composite gasket's normally 40 to 45 thousandths thick, right? On a small engine like a 273, if it was, say, 9-to-1 compression, you're now looking at, 8-to-1?
James Wilhite says, can't find them for a 6. That's because I bought the last 2 on Earth. And one of them is in the Plan Z motor, and the other one is sitting on my shelf. I have the last 2 steel shim slant 6 head gaskets on the planet.
A Chrysler Slant 6 diesel engine would have been a great project, or what do you say, product?
Product, yeah.
That would have.
I would love to build that.
I wonder how hard it would be. I don't think it'd be that complicated.
If you could, you just adopt a pump from any inline 6 motor.
Cummins.
Right,
done.
Cummins, right.
Yeah.
And it's building up compression. So, like if you welded close the combustion chamber, right, and then you deck the block, get the piston right up there, up in the 14-to-1 range.
Right. It'd have to be higher than that. I think they're like 16.
I don't know. We'd have to talk to a diesel guy.
I don't know. I imagine you could probably completely weld that chamber shut with just the valves in it. That wouldn't be a bad idea. I wonder if we get somebody that's like a serious machinist on here.
Wadzonda to be. Tony, I just got a set 2 days ago from eBay. It has a steel shim gasket in it. You got to keep your eyes open. Olive says she has a steel head gasket for a 225 she got from Direct Connection and never used it. Still trying to get my sister to send it.
Look, this guy says, I have a good used slant 6 head gasket leaning up against my nightstand. All right. Let's see. When I look online, 2-door 64 Valiant V100s are stupidly hard to find. I've never even heard of that, so maybe that's why.
Caleb says, yes, 16:1 is a compression ratio.
Oh, for the diesel.
Yeah.
Man, it'd be hard to get a regular. Are they? Do they have flat top pistons in them? Those slants.
Yeah, but they're 130 down the hole.
Right.
Well,
So
190 down the hole.
So you take 190 off and we bring them to zero deck.
Zero.
Then you'd have to weld all the chambers up.
Yeah, which I'm doing anyway. I got a head that I'm going to weld with the chambers closed on anyway. So I want to build a quench motor.
Huh. What are we going to weld that with? Cast iron? I mean, you're going to high nickel rod?
Oxyacetylene and mild steel. I've done it before.
Really?
Yep.
On cast iron head?
Sure, because you're just filling the space. You're not joining anything. You know what I'm saying?
Is it resting on the cast iron?
No, the cast iron pores open up, and you flow the steel into it.
Huh.
Right? Now, you can't do that. I'll show you how to weld cast iron. You can't. It will not work if, let's say, you're trying to repair a casting.
Right. No,
okay.
A crack you can't.
Right. You can't repair a crack like that. But it will work. Let's say if you want to build up an area that you're going to drill, like let's say you want to add a bolt boss to the cylinder head.
Uh-huh.
You can gas. You can heat the head and then flow steel into it and make yourself a mound that you can grind and then drill, and it's there forever. So let's say you wanted to close up the combustion chambers on one of your heads.
Uh-huh.
You take an oxyacetylene torch and you heat it to where the surface of the head becomes molten, and then you just start filling mild steel into it, and you swirl it as you're as you're welding cast iron, okay, with a torch, filling it with mild steel. You don't drip the molten steel into the casting. You swirl it into the casting.
And kind of mix it together?
You mix it together. You actually see it mixed together, because the cast iron part of it will have like almost like a fudgy kind of look to it.
Uh-huh.
And the steel part of it will be shiny molten. You know what it looks like, right?
Right.
Okay. Well, you stir that in as you're heating it, and you see it actually become homogenized. And when it's done, it's...
This guy said bullshit.
Yeah, everything's bullshit. Dakota says they should do a video on that. At some point...
Dakota got timed out, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? And what's funny is, like, the guys that say bullshit is the ones that are not willing to try stuff like that. You know, like, that's where, back in the 60s and 70s when people were building race cars out of anything, and I mean like slant sixes, that's where all this stuff came from.
Yep.
Right? I'll tell you the perfect example. If all of this stuff was bullshit, the 306 crossflow Cleveland head would have never been made. Right? You remember when guys made the crossflow Cleveland head and put on a 306?
Yeah.
For modified? And they cut Cleveland heads up. 4-barrel Cleveland heads.
Yep.
Cut them into sections.
And they furnace braze them.
Furnace braze them back together.
Music City Minutes. Thank you, sir. Cheers to the best live tech show in automotive history. I know nothing. I have a couple of old Mopars, and you guys are keeping them burner. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
But you can't repair. Okay, there are certain castings you can repair, like with gas welding, oxyacetylene welding, right? I wouldn't try it with MIG, because see, the problem with welding cast iron is that it draws the heat away. Okay,
real fast.
And when let's say you're using a MIG, or you're using a flux core, or you're using TIG, okay, the heat is running away from the joint so fast that it doesn't stick. It doesn't meld in there. But if you're using oxyacetylene will preheat the area around, all right, before you actually get to molten cast iron. The whole area around it gets hot. So let's say you're going to weld a cast iron exhaust manifold, right? Because that's one of the few repairs, one of the few cast iron repairs you can make flawlessly using a mild steel filler rod, even a coat hanger for that matter, which is mild steel filler rod. You do realize like coat hangers and welding rod come from the same place. Welding rod, they leave, it's a wire company. Welding rod, they leave straight, right? And coat hangers, they bend up. But you can tell because they have the same coating on them. They have the same protective coating to keep them from rusting, right? But that's besides the point. You can weld something like a cast iron exhaust manifold. Let's say you got an exhaust manifold that's broken in half. Okay, you can successfully gas weld that back together again with mild steel, and you won't have any problem with it because the heat will run away, but not fast enough to actually cause a stressed area where the weld is. But when you try to do that with a more intricate casting, like say a cylinder head or a block, the far ends of the block are drawing whatever heat there is, and that causes stress right in the area where you're doing your welding.
And if you're even if you warp the thing from heat, you gotta machine the surface anyway after you fill it.
No, I've never. No, what I do is like I've welded together. I can't tell you how many exhaust manifolds. I leave them bolted to the head and do like 75%, and you get as much of it as I can with it bolted to the head.
Oh, and then it just holds it straight.
Right. Then unbolt it, and then finish up the weld after that.
Okay.
You know, and then you'd have to machine it.
Huh. So he says, NJW says, I have no problem welding cast with a nickel rod and an old AC arc welder. And see, that's how I was taught to do it too, was heat it up with a torch and then hit it with a high nickel rod. And you can do that.
I've seen the cold, it's what he's talking about is called cold weld. And I've seen that process. They used to use that where the Hemi blocks would crack in the main saddles next to the oil hole. A lot of guys did that, just a high nickel rod and cold welding it. But I've never seen it done successfully long term on a stress crack. But I mean, you may be a much better welder than I am.
Oh, well, on a stress crack, I was told you can't fix those on cast iron with welding, right? Because what happens is, one, you got to drill the end of the crack so it doesn't crack any further, right? And then when you go to fill it, it'll always crack again at that spot that you welded because
you have
when
to
it
drill
cools,
a hole at the end.
Both ends?
Yeah, you drill a hole at the end of both ends because the crack won't extend past a radius. So if you've got a cracked casting, you got, let's say, a 4-inch crack, you drill a hole at either end before you make your repair. What I do is I pin those. So have you ever done that?
No, but I've heard of that, and I've seen blocks get that.
It works perfectly. Pinning, right? What you do is you take your crack, okay? You drill a hole at either end, right? And then the first hole you drill and tap it. You tap it to, like, let's say you're going to use a 5/16 bolt or a 3/8 bolt. You tap it to that. You put the bolt in, right? Tighten it down, and then grind the head off. Then you drill a hole right next to it, slightly overlapping that one. You drill that down, tap it, right? Tighten the bolt down, cut the head off. And you keep doing that in series with the bolts, with the holes overlapping each other. And that's a really effective permanent repair.
Huh.
Niall St. John, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Jupiter Mustang Mike says he fixed a Liberty Bell crack.
You might want to go back and crack that one. We needed some more Liberty.
Cold stitch, it's called. Okay.
Huh. And here's Fubar hitting us up. Hey, you know what? Let's talk about slanted nationals.
Oh, yeah, the slanted nationals. How could we not talk about the slanted nationals?
I know. Well, Plan Z is going to be there.
Plan Z will be there.
And you said maybe, special guest appearance by Trudy the Burnout Chicken?
Yes, Trudy the Burnout Chicken may make it there. She's broody right now. She's she doesn't want to leave the eggs. She's expecting chicken babies, but yeah, Trudy should definitely be there.
September 5th.
Sykes in Missouri.
Yep. The first ever slanted nationals.
I cannot wait for that. Let's see. Tula Toilet have pinned and bronzed my share of tractor blocks. There you go.
You know, a lot of this stuff, like, you notice this, like, the people that deal with either farm equipment or heavy equipment are the ones that still use these things. And then to other guys, it's like, oh, what the hell are you doing? That's such trash.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. You want to talk to a real mechanic, right? And I'm not talking shit. I'm not saying people who own machine shops or anything like that are not. There are some extremely sharp people out there. My machinist is one of them, right? Shacklett's over in Nashville. John Shacklett. Throwing the shout out to the guy. He's amazing. But you want to know what you can get away with. You want to know how far you could push and how unorthodox you can get. Talk to a guy who does tractors. Well, pardon, thank you, sir. UT, your thoughts on a 65 night with a 273? I love it. Doing a pre-purchase inspection in the morning. Any nuances, things to look out for in particular come to your mind? Oh, man.
You said it earlier in the show, right? 65 would be the weird angled bolt holes.
Yeah, but that's not an issue for that. He's not looking to swap the intake manifold. He's
probably not. Right, just drive it.
Anything to look for in that car. Those things are pretty damn bulletproof. The cowls, depending, check the cowl, the underside of the cowl. I've come across a few of those that rotted pretty badly, and that's true of all early A-body 63 through 66 cars. Yeah, check the underside of the cowl for rust through. No, I mean there's the usual stuff, floor rot, but that's that's just part of being
Colders, back window. That's muscle car era stuff. That's everything.
Yeah. No, I can't think of anything in particular. That's a great car, man. 65 value with a 273 is like that one of the happiest drivers you'll ever have. Chris Ponce, should he get a Pontiac Fiera or a Mazda RX-7?
What's the purpose?
Yeah, what's the purpose?
I mean, for daily driver would have to go with the Mazda.
Sean Fagan says, Ponce, man, just man up and get a moped. Yeah, I would go with the RX-7 too.
Yeah, I like the rotaries in them. But if it's for like autocrossing or something, you probably couldn't beat that Fiero.
Well, the nice thing about the Fiero is you can stick all kinds of different motors in back there.
That's what's funny is that has that V6
bolt pattern,
right? And all the later 231 V6s are 3800s. You could put a turbocharged 3800 in there.
I've seen a lot of Fiero swaps back in the day, but Fieros are hard to come by anymore.
Oh yeah, well I had one out here for a while, and then one of our Lemons guys got one.
I had the very last one. I did a road test on a Fiero. It was a drag test road test on a V6 Fiero. That was the very GT? Last one.
That had to be like an 88, 89 GT or something.
It was 1988. Or it might have been an 89 model car. We did it in 88. No, because it was the last one. And in fact, we shot the lead shot of the article was in a cemetery. We photographed the car
death of the Fiero,
right? But it was the very last one. We did the drag test on it.
Huh.
That was in Street Supercar magazine.
Wow. I always liked the Fiero. It's actually just a front wheel drive setup in a rear wheel drive configuration. It's great.
Let's see.
Oh, yeah. So Doug Narden's saying LS. Hey, the LM4 that comes in the Malibu SS Malibu or Impala or one of them. It has that 60-degree V6 bell housing, 5.3 liter.
I was at LS Fest, not this year, but the year before, and there were a couple of LS Fieros.
That's cool.
And it just fits in there like it was intended to be. Let's see. Shove a Poncho 400 in as soon as you get it.
That you might have a hard time putting it in there.
I think you'd have to hang cinder blocks on the front tires, right?
Buick 215 and a Fiero. that would be cool. That would probably be like a really freaking hard swap. It's got its own bell housing.
Yeah, but it's aluminum, so you can weld whatever you want there and then drill and tap.
Well, I guess I could. Just weld a bell housing on it. Just a factory 4-speed style bell housing.
Actually, that would be an easy thing to do.
What's that?
Adapt that aluminum block to just about any transmission you think about it, right? So you're not really married to the bolt pattern the way you are on a cast iron block. You can weld. You could fill in.
Or I could put ears on it or whatever I wanted.
No, I mean to make a bell housing to it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You could, if
Yeah,
I needed an
you
ear,
can add ears. You can do whatever you want with it. That's actually the ultimate swap engine if you stop and think about it.
because you can take it down to the local
It's small. It's light.
welder, and
Local welder, right?
have them weld it up.
My friend Chuck Yoder, I'd bring it over to him. He'll just spark it right up.
Huh. Well, I'm thinking I'm going to take it to the Buick Nationals and see if I can unload it.
Okay. Let's see. Levi Ridge, never buy a car for my son. He sold a car to a lady after he put wooden motor mounts in it.
Wooden?
Oh, God.
Well, hopefully you don't live in a neighborhood with termites.
Let's see. Kisbo, Dallas, could you help explain what the proper placement for fuel cells is on rear engine dragsters? Do they require a plate between it and the engine?
I'd have to look at the rule book. I mean, I don't know this stuff off the top of my head. Honestly, I don't do the tech. Our tech guy does. But I could look in the rule book, and if you need a rule book, you can actually download a rule book from ahraonline.com or on our Facebook page. I put the rule book up there every year, so you don't have to pay for one. It's just an electronic version. You scroll down to where dragsters are at.
Kisbo, why wouldn't you be putting the fuel tank ahead of the footbox? That's pretty much like a standard location for a dragster.
All the way in the front. Right? Yeah, no, that's true. All the way in the front.
Yeah. Now, St. John, does Bottle Rocket have a scatter shield? Yes. Yeah, it's got a Lakewood in it, which was actually one of the problems I had. We took it out to the track one time. I did I redid the clutch, had the clutch, Nashville clutch, redid the spring on the clutch for me, brought it to the track the next day. And when I went to launch the car, the clutch pedal went to the floor because the Lakewood, it's boom, that was it. Linkage fell off because Lakewood has a bracket that's welded onto the side of the can. So the extra spring on the clutch was enough to make that weld-on tab fold over and the linkage fell out.
Oh, that happened to it too? That when we did that fire burnout? Is that what happened to it?
No, that was the throw-up bearing. The throw-up bearing collapsed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I always wondered what that was because it was like, for some reason, that thing just didn't have any wheel speed. The motor was screaming, and it was like, what in the world?
Because the throw-up, there was a new throw-up bearing. And it's not made out of steel anymore. It's made out of some sort of composite material.
Oh, really?
And I was like, okay, this is what they sent. I'll just order a new throw-up bearing. So as we was using it, right, it kept getting tight. Like the clutch pedal was releasing slower and slower. And it was actually like distorting and grabbing the
sleeve.
The sleeve, right.
Oh.
So when we did the fire burnout, I come off the clutch and the motor went, but the tires barely spun.
That's what I was like.
Slipping the clutch.
This does not make any sense because it's not throwing the fire or nothing. It's like the motor was screaming though. I thought, man, either that thing's. I couldn't see it having wheel speed like a top fuel dragster, right? But I could.
It would have plenty of wheel speed though.
Right. Well, I mean, it was spinning, but it wasn't spinning the tires like in relation to the motor.
Yeah.
Because the clutch was slipping the whole time.
The clutch was slipping the whole time. So, and actually, when I went to pull it back into the shop, I had to actually shut the car off, get underneath, and manipulate the linkage, pull it back by hand to get it to actually pull into the shop because it had got to the point that it just wouldn't release at all.
Well, that's what. So the sad part is like the fire burnout night. I mean, that was the only disappointing part. That's what caused the whole thing to kind of go south to begin with. Was that stupid throw-up bearing?
So the next day, I pulled the transmission out. I took that throw-up bearing out. I threw it away. I reached into the bottom of my toolbox. I had a throw-up bearing from unknown origins from like the 1960s, and I just grabbed that and threw it in. It's perfect.
Man, you're really stuck though if you got to buy a new one, huh? Because they're only going to come with that plastic setup.
Okay, Brandon Griffiths. Hey, Tony, hope all is well. All is well, my brother. Burning question. I recently bought an AVS2 Edelbrock. I have a YM dual plane intake, peanut-shaped intake where the carburetor goes. Peanut shape. Oh, that's a spread bore. Yeah. Your manifold you have is a spread bore, right? Meaning it's intended for a carburetor. It has two small primary barrels and two large secondary barrels. The AVS is a square bore carburetor, meaning that the two primary barrels and the two secondary barrels are approximately the same size. So you need an adapter that one side is going to be the spread bore, like on the intake manifold, and the other side is going to be square bore.
He's got an aftermarket intake manifold, though. Wouldn't it be drilled for both?
It's drilled for both, but that doesn't mean that the gasket is going to work.
Oh, right. Okay.
You see what I'm saying? The gasket's going to overhang air.
Right. Okay.
Let's see.
Did the dart only come factory with the slant? No.
Tinkering with Poppy. I have a dog named Poppy. Tinkering with Poppy. Did the dart? No. The dart came with, well, just about every engine Chrysler ever made. Different years, right? Yeah, the 273, the 318, the 340, the 360 on the Dart Sport, and I've run the regular Dart body. The 383, 1969, they built some 440 darts. 1968, they put 426 Hemi darts. The only factory Chrysler engine that I can think of off the top of my head from that era that was never in a dart from the factory would be a 446 pack.
I always wanted to find a 383 one. Like darts and Kudas came with 383s, right?
Yeah, but the 340 is better.
Was it really?
Yeah, a lot.
You know, I had a 340 Formula S. That was my first car.
Did you?
Yeah, a 68 Barracuda 340 Formula S.
But I bet you missed that thing.
I never even really did anything with it. No, it was in about 1 million pieces.
Oh, okay.
I bought it for $30.
Let's see. Levi Ridge just bought a 1972 Charger, all original, even the oil.
Not good.
Well, I mean, maybe it's been sitting, maybe it's got 1,000 original miles on it.
Oh no, Mopar man! I don't know anybody that specializes in salvage yards that specialize in Buicks.
No,
I know there's like the only thing I know of is there's like a 89. Was that the last year that square body one? There's an 89 in the junkyard, but it's mangled in the front. It's hit. So
Adam Shine says part number 2732 is the plate you need for that intake. That's the is that a Mr. Gasket number or is it a Summit number? What number is that? But that would be that part number 2732 would be the adapter to go from a square bore to a spread bore. Danny
Boyd, yeah, it was a fastback.
Yeah, K-Rick, you're right. The 346 pack wasn't in darts either. Although Mr. Norm, the GSS dart. No, not the GSS dart.
No, that's right, isn't it?
That was the supercharged one.
Oh.
So technically, you had dealer installed 346 packs in 1971 with Mr. Norm cars. Let's see. It's an It's an Edelbrock part number for the adapter. Robert Reiner, could you trade a 402 Chevy for a funny goat? I don't know. I mean, is it a fair trade? How funny is the goat? That's the question, because the 402 Chevy is a known commodity. We know what the 402 Chevy is going to do in any given circumstance. But the goat, is it funny to you? Is it funny to me? Is it funny to all of us? Is it ironic? Is it that kind of? Is it this a dry comedy goat? Is this like a Benny Hill kind of goat that you just want to strangle? So that's a loaded question. I would go with the 402 Chevy.
I think they're probably more reliable. The funny goat won't make it past 20 years.
Yeah, that's the truth also, And the whole funny goat thing could get old, right? But but then the goat would be a lot more tasty than the small block. So let's say you kill the 402, right?
Yeah.
Or you kill the goat. Which one is going to make a better meal?
Which one would you have more fun killing, though?
Oh, I wouldn't have fun killing a goat. I would feel bad.
I'd feel badass about killing a 402.
I'd feel worse about killing a goat. Unless you killed it accidentally. You know what I'm saying? Like, you accidentally drop like a ladder on its head or something. Whatever it happens to be, okay? But either way, the goat or the small block Chevy or the 402 Chevy, I would say the goat would make a better meal.
John Wilburn says, funny, haha, or sling blade funny. Uh-huh.
I didn't even see John. Where have you been? I haven't seen you.
Do you recommend updating an RV 1973 Dodge 360 with a Holley 4-barrel carb and a dual plane intake manifold to help with towing a car? Is that a good route for more power?
Yeah. I mean, I have a 360 in my wrecker that I used to tow with, and it's got the stock intake manifold. I've got a Quadrajet on there right now. I'm putting a Holley on it. I've got a spread bore Holley the friend of mine just gave me.
What? You want to get rid of the Quadrajet?
Just to keep all of my parts in uniform.
So they all have Hollies on them?
Yeah, all my cars either have Hollies or Carters. So I've got one vehicle that's got the odd man out Rochester.
That could be the best running vehicle.
It might be. I'll give you the carburetor. I have no.
Just because I start questioning it, I get the car out.
It's yours. It's yours. Actually, I've got a couple of them sitting on the shelf. I got to bring to you.
Oh, perfect. I'll take them. I can always use the parts.
No, the biggest problem is that truck. I have vapor lock issues.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
the only one that's ever said vapor locks on Quadrajets, I've never had one do that.
I'm telling you, I have vapor lock issues with it. So I'm looking to get away from the vapor lock.
Yeah, well, the Quadrajet's known for that. I know where you can get a thermoquad at. There's one right there on the table.
Yeah, I don't want to. Thermoquads are a little too finicky. I want.
Oh, I don't blame you.
And go.
I don't blame you. Yeah. I'll trade you a carburetor. I'll give you that Demon for those Quadrajets. How's that?
I'm not. What do you want to give me?
A Demon.
A Demon. What size?
That one over there. Whatever that is. 650 or something. 750 maybe.
Does it work?
I have no clue.
I don't really like them either. I mean, they're heavy.
What it is.
It's like they built them out of like granite.
Oh, it's heavy. It's definitely the heaviest carb that I have. There you go.
That's a little one. That's a little book. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's like as heavy as a car battery.
This has got to be 20 pounds.
It's definitely different than a thermoquad, huh?
What the hell do they build these things out of, and why?
I don't know why. I think in case your car breaks down, you can actually take the bolts out and beat the fucking car to death.
Do you have a scale by any chance?
Not in here. I
gotta weigh this. Have you guys ever? Have you ever? It's a copy of a Holley, right? But it's made out of like granite,
marble.
Look at those little tiny boosters.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck. I mean, I don't know what it was on.
I don't know. I'll play around with it. I got another one of these sitting on the shelf. I wouldn't dare put two of them on it because then I would have to.
You're gonna drop a tenth. Just,
right? Just
like slow down a tenth. Just because you got 40 extra pounds of carburetor on it now.
Oh God! I lost my lighter.
It's right there underneath the carburetor.
Oh, I'm glad it didn't crush it.
Press it into a diamond.
That is ridiculous. Really, exactly.
Zero says gambler car is now named the Slag.
Yeah. Chris Fox says Demon carbs are heavy, but a good carb for sure. Well, I mean, it's a copy of a Holley. I mean, it's, that's a crazy looking carburetor. Let's see. Slag runner. Garrett says you put that carb on a car, it'll be squatting like a road runner or a lowrider. Yeah, you couldn't put two of these on like on a tunnel ram or anything like that because it would just like collapse the runners.
There you go. That's the name. Slag Hammer.
Oh,
that's awesome.
I love that.
It's good.
Boom. Okay. The gambler car has now been named the Slag Hammer. That's see, that's two of my great minds working together.
I know,
right?
They come up with something good.
I love you guys. Have I ever said? I know. I say it all the time. This Slag Hammer. Yeah. Right. Right. Zero. Right. Slag Hammer. Oh, yes. Slag Hammer. It is. Uncle Kathy, you watch Ultra Kathy. You watching this? Write that down. Make the shirts now.
Yeah. Death by 1,000 BBs.
Corey Funk says goat killer sounds better. I know. We have fainting goats here in Middle Tennessee. The issue is Ultra Kathy's right there. Okay, the Slag Hammer. Yeah, please, Slag Hammer. Start making a shirt. Slag Hammer. Oh, that's great. No, we have fainting goats here. It's like a local phenomenon, right? In Middle Tennessee, they have these goats that. When I first moved here, people told me about it, like, nah, that's just not possible, right? But then when you see it, you can't ever unsee it. They're called fainting goats, and they have. Have you seen a fainting goat?
I have seen them on YouTube. My daughter used to watch them.
Do you beep at goats as you drive past? Because I
no, but yeah. I would love. I have never thought of it.
Every time I drive past goats, I beep at them now. It's cruel, but it's funny as hell. They have this genetic thing, okay, that when they're afraid, not even afraid, like when they're like startled, okay, they throw themselves on their back and they go.
There's an 80s song named Slag Hammer.
Is there?
If there is, you're going to have to put it on the tape deck and just play it in auto repeat. And the speakers on top of, kind of like the speaker from the Blues Brothers on top of the gambler car. Slagging wagon. Oh, damn, that's almost as good.
Slag Hammer, that's good. Let's see. Next project called the Fainting Goat.
Any projects with Steve Dulcich?
No, he works. He's a big TV star.
Plus, he's like about 2,000 miles away. And you know what I was starting to think about? Like, everybody was saying, hey, they did the call out thing. And these guys are, it makes me think, in all honesty, don't those guys have a show? Maybe we should come up with a show where we test car theories and parts. And maybe we'll call it like.
I saw the worst one. I saw something that even Ultra Kathy was like, what the fuck? Okay.
You're talking Engine Masters, right?
I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm not mentioning a show, the name of a show. I'm not mentioning any of the characters that are involved in it. Okay. Or that were on screen. Any of the three of them I will not mention. Or the place of business where they did this.
Okay.
Or the fact that it was sponsored by Holly. Okay. So listen to this. It's a shootout. It's a shootout between a Holly Super Sniper, right? EFI setup, and a carburetor.
Okay.
So they pitted a 650 Demon against
the Sniper, which is probably 1,000 CFM or something.
800 CFM.
Okay.
Okay. Now, after the test is done, okay, after they run it, they run this whole series of tests. Okay, they go through this whole rigmarole. After it's all done, the hosts of this particular show that I won't mention, right, unanimously agree that the carburetor won, but by just a tiny bit. And that one of the reasons why it won, or I shouldn't say, one of the benefits to the fuel injection was that it cold starts good. Okay?
All right.
But by unanimous decision, the carburetor eked out a slight advantage over the fuel injection. Forget about the fact that the carburetor was 150 CFM smaller.
Right.
Right. So if they had run an 800 CFM carburetor versus the 800 CFM
it would
throttle
have just
body,
murdered
the carburetor would have absolutely destroyed the fuel injection. But even with the 150 CFM handicap, which they never mentioned, even with the 150 CFM handicap, the carburetor still won. Yeah, go ahead. Convert all your shit to EFI now. I'll wait here.
Well, I was just saying, if we had a show that maybe possibly tested theories in car parts instead of talking crap, why don't they just test the theory?
Because the sponsor is paying.
Well, yeah, I guess because you're not sponsoring them to find out, right?
Right. The sponsor is paying them to showcase their product. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the way that they best showcased the product was to handicap the opposition by 150 CFM.
Right. Right. Oh, what's your best carb for a blower, in your opinion? Asks Isaiah Osborne.
I don't know. That's too involved a question to just like spit out. There's too much involved in that.
Well, how about this? A double pumper or a vacuum secondary setup for a blower? Yeah,
a double pumper, because you can't. Well, a double pump. You can't. Okay, on a supercharged application, let's say like a Roots, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't overcarburate it. It's impossible to overcarburate it. So mechanical.
Okay.
You would use a double pumper.
All right.
As far as like a blow through setup, you can't use a vacuum secondary.
Right. No, I got that. He's asking for. Well, I guess. Yeah, never mind. I'm thinking Roots is what I was initially thinking. But I guess
any type of draw through blower, right? It doesn't make any difference. You just put whatever carburetor you want on there, but mechanical would be better. For a blow through, you almost have to use a Holly or a Demon because of the way they're constructed, right?
No, I got you.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry if I broke your train of thought.
The only way you can use let's say a Carter or an Edelbrock style on a blow through is if you put it in a box, which is what they used to do in the '60s when these cars when the Edelbrocks, not the Edelbrocks, the Carters were commonly used, like in Paxton superchargers and whatnot.
Right.
They would actually close the carburetor right in a box and pressurize that. Where a Holly, you can much more easily adapt it to a blow through situation.
SD is asking, have either of us ever seen a 70s Stage 2 Buick run down the drag strip? If so, did it live up to the hype? And
I mean, I couldn't count how many I've seen go down the drag strip over the last 1,000 years that I've been, I mean, when I grew up in New York in the 70s, in the 80s and all of that, and those cars were all over the place. On any given night, in English town, there'd be a half a dozen Buicks of that general description. So.
The Stage 2 is kind of defeating of the purpose of the 455. Well, okay, I said that all wrong. The 455 is a flexible, weak block with really big mains, and it needs lots of oil to oil those big mains. And the higher you turn it up, the more oil it needs. And those cylinder heads have big ports, and they make lots of horsepower, but you got to turn it up to make that horsepower, which makes your engine into a main bearing eating bastard is really what it does. But they do run good if you can keep them together.
I got to answer this one. Spanky Ham. Does annular boosters matter on a street normally aspirated motor? Up until about 4 months ago, I guess it was, I would have said, no, right? But no, it actually does make a big difference. And I'm going to do a whole video on that.
Didn't Andy Wood do one on those?
I believe Andy Wood might have gone into that, but I want to do my own. I just need the car back. I'll explain when I actually do the video. But yeah, I had something happen that absolutely changed my mind about the value of annular boosters on a street motor.
That's funny that you say that, because today I was down at Summit in McDonough. That's where I was. It's like a couple hours ago, right? I saw that Summit carburetor you were talking about.
Okay.
And it has the annular
I know.
boosters, right?
I know.
And it looks slick. And it looks really basic and simple.
That
right?
thing changed my mind.
Oh, that
about
carburetor
a lot
did?
of stuff. Yeah.
You said that's the Ford 4100 series Autolites?
Yep. Well, remember all Hollies, right, were Ford carburetors. Holly designed the carburetor to Ford specs, and that Autolite carburetor comes from that same engineering lineage, the same era, the same engineering language.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then Holly bought the Autolite carburetor once Ford stopped producing it, and then it became a Holly. And then Summit bought it from Holly. So it's the Summit carburetor and the Holly are intertwined all through history from the 1950s up until today.
Right.
But that annular booster fucking Summit carburetor absolutely changed my mind about.
Well, I was thinking annular boosters are going to help with atomization.
Bro, I saw a 4/10 difference.
4/10
4/10 difference.
On what?
Between a 600 Edelbrock and a 600 Summit.
Was the Edelbrock set up like poorly?
They're both out of the box.
4/10?
4/10. I'm telling you.
Wow.
I need to rerun that.
That's like
and
40 to 50 horsepower.
I need to rerun that test, and I need to rerun it on a different car. But I'm telling you, back to back, 4/10 difference.
Wow.
2 600s.
That was your car?
Yeah. The one that's out here.
No. Oh, really?
The
GT
that's out there, yeah.
Huh. Man.
Let's see. Adam Stein's highest return rate Holly carb ever produced. Now it's Summits. And you know, listen, I'm going to do more on this carburetor.
We're coming up on 2 hours here already.
We are.
That went by fast.
It did. Let's see. Muscle City Minutes. Tony, is that show Roadkill Garage any good? I watch it.
I haven't watched any of them since originally they were on YouTube, and then they went over to their own channel and they started charging you money for it.
Well, that's Roadkill.
All of them
the
did.
Main show. And then now there's like all these different spin-offs. They have like the Roadkill Garage, Roadkill Extra, Roadkill Bathroom, Roadkill, mashed potatoes, whatever it is. They keep throwing a Roadkill name at it, right? So I do watch them. I keep an eye on everything that's going on.
Ralph Thomas is saying that Mopar Man 78 needs to go to Eldridge Auto Salvage in Murray, Kentucky. They got 30s through 70s Buick cars and trucks.
Harry says they're always ruining C10s on those shows. I can't watch.
What are we considering ruining C10s? I haven't watched any of these shows. I don't watch a lot of TV.
Jonathan Lawson, anything is better than Edelbrock, in my opinion. I disagree. For a daily driver, for daily driver, right, and easy tuning, right, nothing beats an Edelbrock. Right? I'm sorry. I use them on all my cars. I have them on all my cars. I have Edelbrock carbs on like 5 different cars of my own, and that's my carburetor of choice for the car that you're going to drive to the supermarket, going to drive, take down the road, right, road trip with, or anything like that. That's my carburetor of choice. If it's a high performance motor where fine tuning becomes an issue, flow is an issue, then I automatically go to a Holly. But I disagree with Edelbrocks being junk. I love my Edelbrock carburetors.
I don't think they're junk, but I just don't think they're as efficient. They're all right. I just look at it as it's the technology, right? The Edelbrock was a Carter AFB.
Yeah.
Right? Carter AFB came out in the late 50s, early 60s.
But so did the Holly.
Right. And the Holly, again, they weren't concerned with fuel economy with the Holly when they came out. It didn't even have metering rods in it. It just it's based on the Venturi effect, how much fuel it pulls through the jets,
Holly
right?
has a power valve.
Right. Well, okay.
The
yes.
power valve takes place of the metering rod system that's in.
Kind of, sort of. But it pulls fuel through the jets, right? Using the Venturi effect. The more Venturi or vacuum you have, the more fuel it'll pull through.
Right.
Okay. It's not the greatest at fuel economy, but it's great for horsepower, right? Wide open throttle, it's good at. Really good at.
Okay.
I just look at it as the technology. The Carter was early. The Holly was early. The Quadrajet came later. Then the 47th version of the Quadrajet came latest.
Yeah, but if you're talking about the carburetor evolutionary tree, okay,
Right.
the Hollies that we know today were evolved in 1956, 1957. Okay, at that time, Carter was using the WCFB, the Will Carter 4-valve, right? Which is an odd little, it's a weird carburetor, right? Okay, the evolutionary, the Hollies came first, then
Carters.
later on the Carters, 1963, I want to say 1962. 1962 was the first year for the AFBs.
The first thing I remember ever seeing them on, I thought was like 4.9s with the 2 4-barrels, right?
Yeah. I'm on the Max wedges also.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah. But the here's how you look at it, right? For street performance. Now I'm not talking about for ultimate performance. If you're talking about drag racing performance, okay, this is a race car, okay. No, a Holly is it. This is where you're going to go, right? But street performance. Think of it this way, right? Add 100 CFM to an Edelbrock, and you've got the equivalent of Holly performance. So a 700 CFM Edelbrock, 750 Edelbrock will work about the same as a 650 Holly, right? So just add 100 CFM to the Edelbrock, and you have the equivalent performance that you'll get with the Holly.
You think that's because of the air horn?
It's because of the way it's designed.
Yeah.
There's so many restrictions inside the Edelbrock or the Carter style carburetor. There's just so many surfaces and weirdnesses.
It distorts the air, moves it around.
They're flowing it through the base plate.
Right.
Okay, they're not flowing it through the carburetor.
Right.
So a 600 Edelbrock and a 600 Holly have the same area, right, for the throttle bores, but they have a whole different setup up on top.
That's why I always get bent out of shape when guys talk about the Q jets. Like, how big is that Q jet? Well, it's 800 CFM, but on a 305
really.
Chevy, it was 800 CFM. But when you mat the gas, those big barrels always come open. The secondaries in the back, they open up as far to you equals zero vacuum. Right?
It's 800 CFM, right? But it flows the same as like a 600 Holly,
right?
Or even smaller actually. So yeah, you can't go by carburetor flow rates. The way they rate carburetors, first of 2-barrel carburetors and 4-barrel carburetors are rated on a whole different system. We talked about that, right? Like for instance, a Chrysler 6-pack is 1350 CFM, but it actually flows the same as a 950, right? So because 2-barrel carburetors and 4-barrel carburetors are rated differently. But then you've also got the different manufacturers. They'll rate the flow based on the area of the throttle bores, but not through the carburetor itself. So a 600 Edelbrock and a 600 Holly are two completely different animals. And this is something that people don't realize.
Ralph Thomas says Fords were using Hollies in 1908. Let's hear it for Holly.
Yeah.
Well, Holly, I'll blow their trumpet. Holly trumpet, but Holly's now made in China. Sorry to tell you that. It's about as American as, I don't know.
All the carburetors I buy are from swap meets, and they were all made in this country.
Those we were all made in the U.S., right? But it was all from like 2008 and up. That's where they all made in China. So,
let's see. Logan, what do I think of Holly EFI? I am not a fan of any aftermarket EFI setup. Now, I have no problem with factory EFI systems. I think a factory EFI system is fantastic if that's what you're looking for. The aftermarket add-on EFIs, any of them, I don't care if it's Holly, or if it's Phytech or anything like that, I have no regard for them. I will not get involved in any of that silly
Did I tell you that when I called and I was getting that custom set of metering rods made for that Quadrajet at the oh man, I can't remember that guy's name now. Cliff's High Performance.
Okay.
In Pennsylvania. He says, yeah, yeah, if you want to use an electronic carburetor, I'm like, electronic carburetor, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, like Phytech or the the MSD Atomic or whatever they were. He's like, yeah, those are all electronic carburetors.
Jerry Pack, Holly EFI is fine, but the MSD Atomic EFI seemed, in my opinion, to run much better, snappier if you let it learn its own tune and control ignition timing. It's all well and good, but I'm a carburetor guy. And nobody has, the only advantage anybody who's ever been able to prove, and I'm not making this up, go find it yourself, okay? The only consistent advantage anybody's ever been able to prove about EFI over carburetor is that they start easier when they're cold. They run better when they're cold.
It was emissions. Isn't it emissions? That's the only thing.
I mean, no, but we're talking about aftermarket for performance.
Right, which I don't even look. You don't look at the emissions, but I mean, yeah, and you're right. They do start easier.
Yeah, but that's it. That's it. Now, if you care about that, if that's your main priority, and listen, okay, for some people that is a major priority, right? There's a lot of guys that are like, they're old and they're feeble and they're blind and their fingers don't work and they have wheelchairs and shit like that, and so they need something that they never ever have to
touch.
Right, touch. So maybe EFI is a good choice for them, But as far as I'm concerned, nobody has ever showed an actual tangible advantage. Every single back-to-back performance test between an equivalent, that's very important, equivalent carburetor versus EFI, the carburetor always wins. So show me where the advantage is. Jonathan Lawson, yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Jonathan Lawson brings up a good point. And yes, he is right. Yeah, EFI is better in a carb and rock crawler as it gets on the steep grades in the woods. Yes, I agree. Okay.
Yeah, off-road stuff. Then it's just based on the float.
I take that back, right? Yeah. So if you are building a rock crawler or something that's going to see extreme angles and crazy bouncing around and shit like that, then yeah, EFI is a good choice. But generally speaking, performance, street and strip car, muscle car, something that you're going to get. No, there is no actual advantage. It's people trying to sell you a bunch of very expensive technology, which is fragile technology, which is proprietary technology, which is like, it's going to leave you stranded. At some point, it's going to leave you stranded.
And then it's going to cost a lot to fix it.
Right.
That's exactly how I have felt about the whole thing.
Okay, let's see. Opinions on MSD or any aftermarket ignition system. That's such a loaded question. In what application, for what purpose? Because there's different ignitions have different purposes.
Well, I'm working on one right now for my Towing 101 article in the AHRA newsletter. I'm making I have a multi-spark ignition over there. It's an old Excel 300 plus. Okay. And I'm putting it on the Suburban. I know on a fuel injected car, you'd gain 1-2 miles to the gallon because it would burn more efficiently, right? Okay. And that's exactly why I'm doing it on the Suburban, to gain better fuel economy. I don't expect it to have any different in performance whatsoever. It'll probably just start easier and run smoother and then get better fuel economy. That's kind of what I'm shooting for. And that's what they work for, like low RPM. Anything below 2,500 RPM is multi-spark. So if I can lug the motor down, you're getting multi-sparks at 2,000, right?
Let's see. If you roll cars. Oh yeah, if you like to flip your cars over, EFI is awesome. All right, we've been at it for over 2 hours now.
Yeah, well, we got to cut it loose.
We should cut it loose. Let's just take a couple of quick ones here and see what. Let's plug everything we have to plug.
Okay, Slanted Nationals coming September the 5th, Jeffers Motorsports Park.
Oh my God, Missouri. I have to be there.
Yeah, I'll be there too.
All right.
Yeah. Trudy the Burnout Chicken's going to be there.
Yes.
And Ultra Kathy and maybe Ultra Crystal. Is she Ultra yet?
No, she's still
Uncle.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, we're working on her. We're going to slowly up. But
okay.
Yeah. Okay. But Ultra Kathy stands on her own merits as Ultra Kathy.
Yep.
Yeah. And AHRAonline.com.
Yep.
Go join the AHRA.
Yep. And there's a link on there for our merchandise on the eBay page, which is my wife keeps reminding me of every week. And I say, go to the eBay page. Well, there's a link on there
for AHRA merch. What you're wearing right now?
Well, this was a couple years ago, but
okay. But if somebody wants that shirt, you'll sell it to them, right?
I don't have any of these left.
You sell them this one. You have this one.
yeah. You can buy the one right off my back.
Yeah. So that's it. AHREonline.com. Let's see.
Yes, the Plan Z is going to be there, and he's going to be doing some shakedown runs on it. It actually should be shaken down by then. Yeah.
Ari just started his dart, and it started. Excellent.
Huh.
Okay, so that's it for now. As always, our mods, thank you. Right, John, Ari, Fubar, Zero, awesome job, guys. Thank you so much, as always. Everybody contributed via super chat. Thank you. That's the kind of stuff that just keeps the wheels turning, and we can. I can buy a gasket that won't crush out and put this thing on an engine.
Maybe you can afford an intake manifold made out of marble.
Right, exactly. Yeah. This is like a prehistoric carburetor. It's like it was chiseled out of
something.
So that's it. Yeah, and I don't know. Sunday night, 7 o'clock, our regular show.
Is Buff gonna be on there?
No, Buff will be gone for a few months. He came down for the open house.
Yeah, I finally got to meet him, and he was like, "Oh, I'm so happy to meet you."
Isn't it great to meet Buff?
Yeah, he's a great dude.
He's a great dude.
Yeah, he's Wednesday or he's Sundays, and I'm Wednesday, right? So we never get to meet each other.
And of course, we finally got a good solid name for the Gambler car, the Slag Hammer. I love that. and that's it. I'm gonna pull a plug on this. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great night.
See you next week.
Yeah. Bam.